We have the Bryan Kohberger situation, which we can transition to now. And we were covering this, of course, live today. For those who missed it, obviously, he pled guilty to all 5 charges against him: burglary, 4 counts of first-degree murder. People wanted to hear, well, they really wanted to hear why. Right. That was not answered.
I wanted to hear why. That's the first thing I wrote down. I wrote down,
sure.
Here, why?
Because
why? And then I wrote who was targeted and where is the knife. And then the 4th thing I wrote down was the collateral damage to Zena and Ethan. But the questions I had were the first 3: why, who was targeted, and where is the knife.
We learned a lot more about what happened, but almost like in a trial, motive is irrelevant. We didn't hear the why, and we aren't going to. I don't expect we're ever going to hear the why. But we did learn who he attacked first and who was actually seemingly collateral damage.
Because people are complaining, why didn't he allocate? Because I said last night on a show I did that he wasn't going to allocate. He was going to say guilty. The prosecution was going to do the allocation. But let me tell you, there's a whole theory in prosecutions that you don't give somebody who is especially a mass murderer the ability to say it out of his words, because maybe that's what they want, okay? And also you want to make sure it goes very smoothly and he agrees to everything, and everything that has been set out and negotiated between the prosecution and defense has been put on paper. But there is a theory that I know a lot of you just wanted to hear him to say what he did, but him saying what he did may mean that he gets the upper, like, look what I was able to say in front of all these people.
The state's evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing in his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Kohberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone began connecting to a cell tower that serves the area of the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can put his phone in that area on those times. In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff's Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was the traffic stop of Mr. Kohberger's car, which turned out to be a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Kohberger's name, Bryan Kohberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was an apartment address in Pullman. We then move to the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Kohberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until approximately 4:48 a.m. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra entering Moscow at approximately 3:02 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning. Comes into the immediate area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leaves several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and above the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence that would face the area above where the defendant's car was parked. Defendant entered the residence, went to the third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonzalez. The defendant, as he left that room, for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to Madison Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath, as well as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important to note single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel was still awake at this time. In fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the third floor. It was on the second floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well with a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation. There were two other roommates in the house, and they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand. And she saw him leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before. At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later, the defendant's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122, leaving the area at a high rate of speed. And if the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walenta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town. The evidence would show that following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time. So we know that he went through a variety of back roads in very rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrived at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there. In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 13th, 2022, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show that Mr. Kohberger went to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington. That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate. Mr. Kohberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Kohberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed. Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife sheath next to Maddie's body at the crime scene. I can tell the court and the public the weapon itself, the knife, has not yet been recovered. I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings. In Pennsylvania, the defendant's car was seized, and it was actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, you know, in those compartments in the doors. You can try to keep them clean where you put stuff. There's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. The defendant's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up about this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees, and he had that knowledge and skill. So, Your Honor, at the end, the state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Ms. Kohberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted, and that he then killed intentionally, willfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice forethought, Maddie Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Okay, before we continue on
Yeah.
with this, which is basically the plea and
Well,
recitation of guilty. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, Bill Thompson is a seasoned prosecutor. I mean, just the pure emotion just from reading that, and some of the parents were in the courtroom. Some of the family members, Mr. Goncalves was not in the courtroom. The parents of it had been reported before. Mike Ruiz of Fox News, who we do a lot of interviewing with, said that the parents of Bryan Kohberger were in the courtroom, and Kohberger didn't look at them once. But this whole idea is just, but all this evidence we're hearing, I will tell you, Michael Bryant, and I'll announce it to everyone now, we do have somebody who's in our chat. I don't know if he wants to be identified, but it's going to be doing FOIA requests for Justice Serve TV to try to get some of the information, the new documents and videos that were announced today. So, but boy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Bill Thompson, who we just heard from, he's from Latah County. That's where Moscow is. And even though the venue moved to Ada County, Boise, the team went with. And he's gotten fried by, there are two of the families that are in support of the deal, two that are not. We're going to cover both after we hear the plea. But he was just ripped, as they said in the Karen Reed case, a new one.
And he also
he just caved in.
He caved in. They also kind of answered, I said, who was the target? It sounds to me like Madison Mogen was the target because they keep naming her first, right? The sheath was found under her. And answers some of the questions about how the cell phone towers are so important. The 405 to 420, indicating that he was in the house probably less than 15 minutes because he had to walk from his car. He parked when we were covering this. Remember back then, everyone thought he parked above there and looked in and came into the kitchen sliding door, and that's exactly what he did. But there was at least up to 15 minutes of terror in that house.
Yeah. It's just unthinkable. And then, as we now know today, that after he accomplished what apparently was his intended crime or crimes with the first two murders, he committed two more on the way out the door,
which apparently weren't intended. It just happenstance. Xana had been awake because she got a DoorDash order, and then Ethan, I guess he could see him in the bedroom and killed him as he was sleeping. I mean, remember the picture of the blood coming out the bedroom?
Down the siding. Yeah. And so it makes you think, and I'm sure these two young ladies who survived are thinking they're, whomever they believe in every day, because he brushed past one of them and decided not to kill that person.
That was not on his list. Plus, he was probably rushing out, not knowing that he had left the sheath there, obviously, in his planning that he had done. It's unthinkable. And I'm wondering, I don't even know whether Kaylee was the Goncalves was she intended, or was she just because she was sleeping in the bed with Maddie?
Yeah, I mean, because we don't know of the connection that
why
maybe somehow motivated. Maybe he was following her at times that's undocumented, and it culminated with his visit that night. We don't know. We may never know.
Yeah, but in the space of all this brutality that we're hearing, we're also hearing a lot of stupidity. He has an Amazon gift certificate. He buys the sheath and the knife, which you bought, but don't show the knife.
I did. In fact, I was looking for it. I can't find it. But you're right. I wanted to kind of just sense the size and
decide the
to
sheath,
mask
because the knife got us a strike
Get
last
dinged.
time,
Yeah.
a ding last time. It's so horrible, but certainly the sheath. He probably goes back to the house to obviously look for it. To me, at 9 o'clock in the morning, maybe he dropped it where he had parked.
Could be.
And then he drives away. Obviously, gets rid of the knife. It's the suggestion is in the moving waters, but we don't know that. Hasn't been recovered. And then he tries to buy a new knife and sheath on Amazon and then get rid of his purchase history. I mean, come on. Are you kidding me?
I know.
I mean, a mastermind criminal to make these killings, and then the stupidity. Oh.
Yeah. Well, he's not a career criminal. He was just, he's a bent dude. He's got issues. He's got problems. So it's not like he was a repeat offender who had come up with some master plan that he repeated over and over and over again.
Yeah, but he was proud of butchering, slaughtering, eviscerating 2 young girls who were just doing nothing to him. I mean, come on. I mean, this is a evil son of a bitch. Okay, let's put it out. I mean, that's about as mild as I can say.
And he's fascinated by the process because he's trying to, in theory, get a degree. Is he really going to try to get a degree, or is he just amassing information that he could use for a crime, which turns out to be this quadruple murder? Who knows? The guy's he's twisted. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back and here again. This is basically his ultimate plea deal or plea in front of this court and everybody else who was following. Let's see. Here we go.
All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogen, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. The court finds that there is a factual basis for the plea and that finds the defendant believes the plea to be in his best interest. I find that the plea was given freely, voluntarily, and was intelligently made. I accept the plea. I direct that it be entered. Okay.
All right. So obviously the key for the court is a number of things. Yes, I find there's a factual basis for the plea and that this defendant entered into it knowingly, willingly, intelligently. That always confuses me when I think of such outrageous acts as being intelligent and how they've been respected. But anyway, that's the process. The court has to do that to protect itself. Even though this defendant has waived any right to appeal, he couldn't come back later and say, "Oh, by the way, it wasn't knowing, voluntary, and intelligently made." That's done.
I will say for those of you who are wondering about this, because I think almost everyone would have said this is the kind of case that the death penalty was made for. The parents of Madeleine Mogen, who apparently appeared to be the main victim, and then the parents of Ethan Chapin, who was collateral damage here, they were for this plea. And I have to tell you that as a mother, I'm torn, okay? I'm torn. Yeah, do I want justice? But by the same token, I don't want my kid's death and their eviscerations and their autopsy photos and everything out there somehow in the public for fodder by people for years. I mean, I just don't. And he in prison, if you all think that the death penalty is off the table, and I'm going to tell you this straight, he will become, how long as it takes, initially he'll be in protective custody, but he will become the stalked. He will no longer be the stalker.
He'll be the Dahmered, could be.
Right. Jeffrey Dahmer, Buddy Bulger, the priest, the pedophile priest in Boston. It happens.
let's take a look at the Goncalves family. They are the folks not happy with what's going on, what has gone on. So this is from their Facebook page. Right here, right now, we dig our heels into the earth and carve a line deep in the dirt. This ain't justice. No judge presided, no jury weighed the truth. Thompson, again, Bill Thompson, robbed us of our day in court. No negotiations, no jury of our peers, not even the pretense of cooperation and fairness. Cowardly men, gutless men, they scatter like roaches when the battle closes in. And Thompson, he's retiring on this deal, his shadow slithering toward the exit, leaving only the stench of his betrayal. No spine, no shred of honor. He didn't have the basic decency, the plain human courage to face families, to meet our eyes and ask, how do we make an offer that works? Instead, Thompson cut his deal with the devil. His negotiation didn't require anything other than a simple guilty plea, allowing him the leeway to blame the same people you're paid to protect. You betrayed us, Thompson. Your deal fails to shield the innocent. You could have stood tall and made damn sure the blame stayed where it belongs, not on us, not on the broken survivors, still carrying the weight of your repeated failures. Moving on here. Get to the second page. I mean, this was from the heart, passionate, and I think understood. I think a lot of people would perfectly understand where this is coming from. It's ugly, it's raw, it's wild, it's anything but easy. Yet you, Mr. Thompson, didn't even bother to negotiate with us. So this is all we have left. There's no more time for us to wait for you to make a stand, so we stand in your place. Kaylee, Jade, Goncalves, we love you, baby. You deserve better than this justice system. Your soul is not a Thompson bargaining chip. We do not accept his plea deals signed in your name. We're screaming for you as loud as we can. Kaylee, Jade is better than this. This is our last shot, Judge Hippler. You are our only hope that our child murder isn't granted control over his destiny in our children's names. You take control of this deal and make it right because now you own it. Now, of course, before I move on to the third page, there's very little discretion. The court can't do much of anything. Now that the court's accepted the plea, there was a very, infinitesimal, remote possibility that the court could have rejected the plea, but that was not going to happen. And so in this particular case, everything the judge has to do is really administrative. He's going to have a sentencing. That's coming up on the 23rd.
He made it very clear, by the way, a couple of things. He made it very clear when he entered the courtroom. He did not appreciate it. He's actually referred things to law enforcement because he must have gotten death threats here on taking this plea, and that's also no way to act. Okay.
Of course. I mean, I understand the frustration and the passion and having to vent, but you got to focus it in the right place. And in fact, the court said, "Don't talk to me. Don't bug me. Go to the prosecution if you got a problem with this."
Right.
This is our courtroom now, this moment, this stand. Our voices rise to every American who will listen. We would have provided protection for the roommates, the best friends, the fallen vet, God rest his soul, and every soul affected in our shattered community. We would have carved our terms like sacred commandments, etched deep into unyielding granite, a testament to those we've lost and the justice they're owed. First, truth, spill it. BK, the defendant, every sickening detail only the killer would know, the kind that twists your guts just to hear, but turns even a simpleton Kohberger against you. Second, you bear the guilt, all of it alone. You don't get to smear the survivors, the ones still waking to nightmares born of your reckless choices. Third, no cashing in on our grief, no books, no private interviews with your ex-professor. No one is allowed to study you because you're not special. You don't get to spit on our kids' graves by making this all about you. Only Hippler can step into this void, mend the wreckage Thompson left in Latah's so-called justice system. This is what murder victims' families' negotiation looks like. So,
by the way, the defense did offer the plea, and the prosecution accepted it. It wasn't the reverse way, but usually, having been in this situation, what the prosecution may say to you: look, if you come back to us. We're not offering this, but if you come back to us saying you will accept life imprisonment, no, nothing else, that's it. No appeals, no nothing. We'll consider it. I mean, there's a way of doing things that lawyers do things without saying exactly what they mean. And remember, also, the prosecution may know something. I don't know about the young woman who saw him leaving. Remember, she was traumatized. She was traumatized. And people were suggesting, oh, she's on drugs, she's this, she's that. She didn't really see him. Of course, she saw exactly who she saw, and she actually had a photograph or a picture drawn of him, a police drawing of him with the bushy eyebrows. It sounded like the fugitive in a way, and all. But you don't know where she is in her mental health state, and all the people that have to testify, all these young kids that saw the bodies and the blood and the gore. I mean, let's not romanticize this, what's going to be here. And even if he did get the death penalty, it would be years. Most people in the death penalty die of old age before he'd hit that firing squad. So there's trade-offs here. There's trade-offs with regard to what happens.
And so that explains, why there's such a divide between family members, those who are accepting this, ready to move forward, and those that will never accept it. So this is the Madison Mogen family, their attorney who spoke for them. Again, they are stacked up behind him. I suggest you look at their faces and their demeanor, because it tells you as much, if not more, about what's going on with them than the statement does.
Good afternoon. I'm Leander James from the law firm of James, Vernon, and Weeks in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. I'm a victims' rights attorney. For the past 2 years, I've had the privilege and the honor to provide pro bono representation in this criminal case for Karen Laramie and Scott Laramie, the loving mother and stepfather of Maddie Mogen. I will be reading a statement of gratitude today from the Laramies. 962 days ago, we lost our Maddie, our kind, loving, vivacious, and caring daughter full of purpose and promise. We are grateful for the gift of her life, and we have grieved the loss of that life during each of these 962 days. We love you, Maddie, and we miss you. We are grateful for the gift of the young, vivacious, promising lives of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan, and we deeply, deeply mourn their senseless loss. We remain in solidarity with their families and friends, and we continue to shower them with our prayers and support. We are grateful for their prayers, love, and support that they have given us. They have helped us and sustained us during our darkest times. We are grateful to the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, and his dedicated and caring team, including victim coordinators, Kim and Stacy, who have helped to guide us through the sometimes confusing and disorienting legal process. Thank you for all your dedicated, diligent, and tireless commitment to justice and the successful outcome reached today. We support the plea agreement 100%. While we know there are some who do not support it, we ask that they respect our belief that this is the best outcome possible for the victims, their families, and the state of Idaho. We extend our deep gratitude to the many law enforcement officers and staff who worked tirelessly to obtain the critical evidence that brought justice today, including the Moscow Police Department, the FBI, the Idaho State Patrol, and the Lehigh County Sheriff's Department. We are deeply grateful to Judge Hippler and Judge John Judge before him. We thank you for your diligence, thoughtfulness, and judicial guidance. We appreciate the difficult work you have done to balance the rights of all involved and to uphold the rule of law. You have had our prayers and support throughout this case. We send our love and gratitude to the many family and friends who have supported us, cared for us, and helped us to heal our open emotional wounds. To the good people of North Idaho, who have showered us with kindness and support, we thank you. We also mourn today with you the recent tragic and senseless loss of two brave North Idaho firefighters.
Wow.
We extend our prayers and support to their families. You are not alone. We understand your pain. For all parents who have endured the loss of a child, we know recovery is a long and at times an almost unbearable journey. But you are not alone. And there is hope and there is healing. We thank those in the press who have respected our privacy and the grieving process, and the privacy and grieving process of the families of Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan. To others in the press, we gently encourage you to do the same. We thank the many people across our nation and beyond who have reached out to us, prayed for us, and extended their kindness. You too have helped us on our journey to heal. We now embark on a new path. We turn from tragedy and mourning. We turn from darkness and uncertainty of the legal process to the light of the future. We have closure. We embark on a path of hope and healing. We invite all of those who have mourned with us to join us, and we wish you well. Thank you. I will now share a few words of my own. Over the past 2 years, I've been amazed and humbled by Karen and Scott's strength, endurance, and faith. They have uplifted me and so many. They founded a nonprofit to help others in the name of Maddie. They have been a beacon of hope amidst a dark and tragic time. To those young and bright attorneys out there looking for purpose and meaning in your profession, I invite you to join the effort of crime victim attorneys to bring victims justice with compassion, empathy, humility, and understanding. This case is not the end of violence. This case is not the end of lawlessness. We need your help to bring hope and healing to the innocent caught in the crossfire of life. Thank you all.
Wow, Michael,
Yeah,
wow, wow.
I thought it was important to have that last little bit on there, just for just because we as attorneys, of course, we try and share how these things suck us in and become so important to us as well. Obviously, can't feel what the families are feeling, but his explanation, trying to tell people that it's been so powerful in his life as well, and suggesting to others, give this a try. Help victim family members if that's your calling.
Yeah. They concentrated on Maddie Mogan here. If Maddie was the target, if maybe the parents know this, maybe the prosecutor knows this and has said that to them, and maybe she was the one who really was, the whole family feels guilty because she was the target. Maybe that's another reason that they want to accept this and move forward today. But they have other healing to do besides that, and the guilt that must be to go along with this. So I just throw that out to you. I don't know if that's true. And the Kohbergers also issued a statement. They just want the process to bear out. Just
tough day.
Tough day.
A lot going on.
Tough day. And obviously that genetic genealogy outplayed here with a Q-tip. I'm never going to look at a Q-tip in the same way.
Hey, my mom used to say, don't put anything in your ear smaller than your elbow. So we didn't have a lot of Q-tips. Well, how did they connect that up? That's the dad's DNA. Well, we know what it is because of the Golden State Killer case out of California. That was the first case of familial DNA. And what you do is, you folks who love 23andMe and Ancestry.com and all those, I did a bit on this on Law and Crime once, and I read some of the agreements. When you go onto those sites and you pay your $50 or whatever it is, and you register because you want to know if you're 1/16 Filipino or whatever it happens to be you're looking for, you are acquiescing to law enforcement to access your DNA records. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, in a case like this, they go into the database and they find this Q-tip DNA from the dad, and there you go. Then they have something to match it up to and link him to these. So that was the linchpin in this case, as it was in the Golden State Killer case, which was a number of murders that were cold cases.
Yeah.
So think about it. I'm not saying you should or shouldn't do it. I'm just thinking, know what the hell you're doing. It's more a reflection of your family than your personal choices. Like,
see how the phone, you see how crime scenes are not just the crime scene. You see how crime scenes are the phones, the tracking, the cars, the DNA. You see that it just doesn't involve the crime scene. But boy, I don't think this is a case you and I are ever going to forget, because he's indelibly ingrained. And when I see evil, I see the Bryan Kohberger picture.
Yep. And it's just, the Bundy, the Jeffrey Warrens that I talked about earlier today. It's a common theme that is just creepy and frightening. And we'll see if this guy survives very long once he's in prison. Sentencing on the 23rd. Okay. No real choice by the court. It is like a possibility of parole.
Yep.
But
all day sentencing.
As people were concerned about its victim impact statements, they're assuming it's going to take only one day. The court said Let's set it up for the
8:30.
23rd. If we need another day, we'll spill over. So